Welcome to the United Free Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Jelly. It's midterm season in the United States right now, and the Republicans have the House and the Senate. So the most realistic strategy, the strategy that makes the most sense is that people vote Democrat to get Trump's Republican members out of basically the government, right? The House and the Senate. But I don't think that's the right way to go. Because what have Democrats done? When Biden was in office, he didn't do nothing. He was just falling asleep, falling over, tripping over himself. It was a disaster. So Democrats ain't gonna fix the problem. And also, I think that people need to stop trusting these politicians, whether you're Republican or Democrat, right? Left wing or right wing. You need to stop trusting. Democrats, they promise all these benefits to the people. They promise to uplift the minorities, to give everybody health care and, educational benefits, but they don't do that. They don't give them the things that they promised. They don't. Republicans, same thing. Republicans talk about how they're going to give you tax cuts, how they're going to stop all these wars and bring peace and all that. Golden age. Bring back an America that was lost. Bring back the American dream, right? Take us back to an era of the past, right? Make America great again. But they haven't done that. They lied. They lied to get people to vote for them so they can get into office and maintain their power, control, and fill their pockets. People need to vote another way. You don't trust these politicians at all. And let me give you a brief history lesson here. Democrats in the past, they had FDR, right? Franklin D. Roosevelt. He was the president who was able to have multiple terms, right? More than just two. Mostly because of world wars, right? Well, I think it was the First World War. When he was able to extend his term. I could be wrong on that, but I know he had multiple terms. And people didn't like that at that time. I mean, he was popular. People were voting for him, but that was an example of we can't have a president have, too much power like that for a long time, right? So then they implemented a 2-term limit. So after that, people voted, started voting different. They voted in Eisenhower, who was a Republican, right? And then after that, they voted in JFK. JFK, his vice president was Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson was the one who signed the Civil Rights Bill. JFK was assassinated. Lyndon B. Johnson became president. He signed the bill, right? After that, Democrats had a voting bloc of people who trusted them forever, and that voting bloc is the black community, the black vote. They had a black vote by 92% because black people trusted Democrats because they helped us, the Civil Rights Movement. They helped vote in the Civil Rights Bill. They with us. They're our allies. They trust us. But thing is, Democrats don't care about black people. Lyndon B. Johnson himself did not care about black people. He was a Dixiecrat, Southern Democrat who had racist values. He didn't care about black people at all. He just wanted to guarantee the vote for Democrats. He wanted to guarantee that Democrats would win majority of elections in the future. But as time went on, you had, elections go back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. But thing is, you had two different parties. These candidates still have the same belief system in terms of maintaining power, maintaining the Oval Office, maintaining the House and the Senate. They want power. That's all they care about. Now, yeah, they may have slight differences in terms of their ideology and their viewpoints, but it still centers around power. And they use people, basically as sheep. They look at people as sheep and use them, and it's basically a divide and conquer game. Like, all right, we're going to take people, we're going to get them to vote this way. We're going to get power. We're going to get into the House. We're going to be able to do what we want now. Once we get power, once we get into the House, when we win the election, that's when we're going to be able to do what we actually want to do, fulfill our actual agenda. Like, for example, with, when Biden got in, he was talking about the Build Back Better plan, right? Which was not just the United States policy. It was global policy. Everybody was saying the same thing. Build back better, build back better, right? So that's the agenda. That's deeper than just the policy that they were preaching to the people, right? That it was promoting to the people. Same thing with Trump. He was talking about, he had his agenda, but really in the background, he had the Project 2025 agenda, which is the Heritage Foundation agenda centered around bringing back Republicans, getting Republicans back in power to bring forth an America that they wanted, right? And using Trump as the guy, the figurehead, to usher that in. So basically what I'm saying is Trump said one thing to the people, but in the background, he bringing in his probably 2025 agenda, right? That's what he was doing. That's what he did. 2025, all the things that he did was following that agenda. So that's the main point is that, hey, both of these parties do not represent the people. They have their own agendas. They're telling you, hey, we're going to do this for you, but they're not doing it. They're just saying that so they can get into office. So these minority groups, especially be black people and other minorities, don't vote Democrat. Don't vote Republican either. There's another way you can vote. You can vote independent, right? You can vote candidates that's not bought out by, different organizations like, AIPAC and all these different, Israeli type organizations and all that. Don't buy into that. You can vote independent. You can get candidates or this thing, or you can do this. You can find candidates that's, okay, it could be a Democrat or Republican, but do more research, right? Look into these candidates' backgrounds. Find out, who they align with, who got them into those doors, who were their mentors, right? And make sure that you check them, right? Check them and find out, are they actually gonna do what they say, right? I mean, that's hard to do because you don't really know. But the thing is, think before you vote. You can vote independent and get somebody in there who's not part of the establishment. Because be honest with you, I don't even trust the whole party system. I think that instead of having just Democrat and Republican, you need a multi-party system. Each party represents each demographic, each state. That's how you're going to get people in, get people to vote, in the ways that they want to get in there, right? But basically, instead of having these two, long time, century old parties, it's not working. It's a system that's been going on for decades and it hasn't worked. So that's my take on it. My take is, these parties are not what they used to be. Democrats in the past, when I'm talking about the past, I mean like 100 years ago, they had some good policies in terms of, being progressive and helping the communities out. Republicans, about 200 years ago, 1800s, a lot of them, they were against, they were basically they had anti-slave policies. A lot of the different pilgrims and stuff like that, they promote anti-slavery, and then Civil War happened. You had Abraham Lincoln, Republican president at that time. He was against the immoral practices that were going on during those times when slavery, right? And when Civil War happened, slaves freed, Confederacy defeated. But like I said, as time went on, things changed. People changed. The people in those parties were different, had different mindsets, and it became more about control instead of, being about the communities. Because when these parties first started, it was about the communities. Now it's about, like I said, more like corporate structures, bankers, people who loan them money to help their campaign. That's what they care about first. They care about the people who funded their campaign, who paid for their ads for them, paid for the posters, the mail, all that, the flyers in the mail. They paid for that to help them through. So when they get into the office, like, okay, instead of helping people out in the community, I'm going to help people who funded my campaign. The people who funded my campaign, who told me, hey, I want this to happen, I'm going to do it for them first instead of thinking about the people who actually voted me in, right? They're thinking about the money. That's all it is. It's about greed, power, control, and they're using divide and conquer systems. So that's my take on it. Think before you vote. Don't just vote Democrat and Republican. Don't vote for these parties. Do not vote Democrat. Do not vote Republican. Vote another way. Use your vote. Use your voting power in a way that actually empowers you and your communities, not just these two parties. So that's my take on it. So that's my message. So in conclusion, if you're down for the cause, if you're down for the revolution, if you're down to change, this whole, American system of politics, get the corrupt actors out of government, the corrupt powers, take them down, do peaceful methods, peaceful tactics, then, hey, subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Thank you.